Hey guys, welcome to Communist in China, and this episode is going to be dedicated to World of Tanks, and more specifically, the Chinese tech tree. What you guys can expect if you go down this tech tree. It's probably gonna be a short video. I'm just gonna give you like the basic rundown of each and every tank, um, and then I will do longer reviews for each one separately. So, I mean, tier 1 to 5, you can pretty much get. You already pretty much know what that is. It's like Tier 1, you got the NC-31. All you need to do is just drive up there, get shot a couple times, and voila, you have completed your grind all the way to the VA Type B. It gets kind of good there. You get a pom-pom, but still, I mean, all you need to do is win a couple of games, and then, wow, you're already at the Chiha. Congratulations, you are now not a complete noob. Anyway, now that you're at the Chiha, well, what do? Well, you've got a pretty good gun. Let's actually look in here to see what the gun is, because at these lower tiers, it's all about the gun. You get a gun with 81 millimeters of penetration and 70 damage. So really, this tank, it's all about that gun. It's not particularly fast. Doesn't have any armor really. That gun can just pretty much penetrate any tier 3, tier 4, and sometimes even tier 5. So it's a decent tank with that gun. Anyway, moving on. This is like a straight path all the way up to tier 6. So it's quite easy to decide where you're going to go because you've only got one way. Anyway, tier 4, you get the M5A1 Stuart. Basically, it's a light tank, and you do what light tanks do. You go out there and you get shot and you die. Yeah, this tank does not have the health pool to take 1 or 2 shots by 122 millimeters, so chances are when you're in tier 7 battles, or tier 6, or even tier 5 battles, you're going to get one-shotted by almost everything, anything Soviet at least. This thing does not turn particularly quick, but the gun, once again, is decent. It is the Chiha's gun. As I said before, 81 millimeters of penetration is pretty good. It's better than the American M5 Stuart, just because of this gun, the autoloader gun the Americans get. It's pretty bad. But yeah, as a light tank, this thing still sucks quite a bit. It's better than the M5. Moving on to tier 5, you get the Type T-34, and this is where the Chinese tanks start to get different. Statistically, it's the exact same thing as the normal T-34. There is no difference. However, in this tank, there's 2 hidden differences, and one of them, which we can reveal here in Tank Inspector, would be the gun depression. It's 5 degrees of gun depression. It's quite bad. The average for tier 5 mediums is almost 10 degrees. So, I mean, this thing has pretty bad gun depression. And the other difference is it is surprisingly bouncy, I would say. The armor can be quite troll. I've got a video that I will put up on this thing's actual review. The armor is really, really funny, and it can bounce like tier 7, 122 millimeters. So you gotta get kind of lucky, but it does hold up, and this is why that thing can be a little bit more aggressive, and you might be able to actually be able to rush in your T-34, kind of like what it's supposed to do in real life, but when you're playing the normal T-34, you can't really do in high tier games. This thing can kind of pull it off. So once again, I think it is better than the regular. Tier 6, you've got 2 options, and this is where I'm going to use the whole tech tree to show you. A lot of people ask me, well, what should I go down first? Should I go down the medium tank or the heavy tank line? And they kind of get 2 answers. First of all, well, I got to ask you another question. Are you planning on getting both lines? If you are planning on getting both lines, then that makes the answer kind of easy, but if you're not, then it's kind of complicated. So the better of the 2 lines, without a doubt, is the medium line. I mean, the tier 9 medium is really good. The tier 10, I mean, a lot of people hate this tank, say it's underpowered. I think it's really good, especially for the average player. I think it's really, really good. The heavies, they're not bad either. So, I mean, all of these lines are quite good. It's just, I think the tier 10 medium is better, and overall this line is a little bit better. However, if you're going to go down both, you must go down the heavies, because pretty much all the heavy tanks equipment goes on the mediums, just a tier up, usually. So, if you're trying to grind stuff out, the fastest way definitely is to go down the heavies, then go back down the mediums. So let's pretend we're going down the heavies. The next tank is the Type 58, and you guys may know it. No, it is not a year before the Type 59. This is actually the T-34-85. Quite basic tank. I mean, statistically it's the same, except for the gun. You do not get that really good Tier 7 85 millimeter that the T-45 gets. This thing instead gets a different 85 millimeter, and it's decent. I mean, the stock gun is actually really good. You're looking at a stock gun that is better than the T-34-85. However, the completely upgraded gun is not that much better than the stock gun. So you're looking at a more consistent but not as good fully upgraded tank. And that's kind of the story about this tank. It is a consistent tank. It does better game per game. Well, I might do the same amount, but still, you don't have as many bad games in this as you would T-34-85, and that's kind of because the T-34-85 has the speed to get you killed, and it doesn't have the armor to hold you up. But at the same time, if you're going to have a good game, that gun is going to get you a good game. This gun is not really going to do it. So this gun definitely suffers penetration issues. I didn't really have a problem with it, but it can be an issue. But yeah, this thing, it's not that fast, so it doesn't get you killed fast. Another thing is, once again, the armor seems to be better for reasons that I can't really explain. It just seems to hold up. And that's why this tank is actually quite good. Now the thing is, this thing has worse gun depression than the T-34-85. I believe it's 5 degrees still. Yes, 5 degrees. I think all the heavies have 5 degrees. Anyway, look at that. That is atrocious, completely atrocious. If we look at the T-34-85, we'll probably see, I'm going to guess, 7 or 8 degrees of gun depression. Just to look at the T-34-85. Yeah, that is a huge difference. 7 degrees of gun depression doesn't seem like much, but it kind of is a lot. So let's just go back to the Chinese T-34-85 to the Type 58. So it's a more consistent T-34-85. Gets the job done. I mean, it's not a bad tank by any stretch, but it's still not the best tank. You can grind through it quite fast though. So the next tank would be the IS-2, and once again, this is very similar to the Soviet tank, except it's got a little bit of differences. The main difference is that its shells, you see here, fires heat, and the Chinese heat is notoriously bad. Statistically, there's nothing wrong with them, but for some reason, Chinese heat does not hold up, and it is quite bad. So when you're just shooting things, you tend to bounce more. This gun, once again, less gun depression, and the hull armor seems bouncier. I'm not sure if it's because it's a different variant, because this is the 2, the other one is an IS-1/2, but they should be quite similar, but for some reason this thing does seem bouncier. But it can't really do the damage that the IS-1 does, just because of the APCR rounds. So let's look at the 110. This is where things get interesting. This is not a Chinese copy. It looks a lot like the IS-3, kind of is the IS-3, in the same way it is actually the IS-2, just with a better hull armor. And this gun, this tank is a very interesting gun. It's 100 millimeter, so I mean, you've got the T-54's gun on an IS-3. It doesn't look like it belongs, but you make it work. Frontally, this is a better tank than the IS-3. It's got better armor. The gun kinda is better, but at the same time, no. I would probably take the IS-3's gun, to be honest. But the turret here, really strong. So the 110, in my opinion, is better than the IS-3. But this is more like a kind of like a medium tank. It's kind of fast. It's got quite good armor, and it's got a really good fast firing gun. So if you like medium tanks, this might be your thing. However, that's a one-off trend for the Chinese tanks. Actually, I guess the 85 millimeter on the Type 58 is kind of like that. Fires faster, but not as much power to it. This one's kind of the same thing, but mostly the Chinese have big guns that shouldn't be on the tank. So if you look at the WC-111, 1 through 4, you get a bigger gun. If you're grinding it out, you will probably be using that 100 millimeter, but the top gun on this makes this thing really special. It is 130 millimeters, so it does 490 average damage. It is really, really good. It kind of separates this from the IS-8 because this thing just does more damage than the IS-8, and I believe it's got better DPM. I'm not sure, but it's still quite good. It is as fast as a medium tank because of terrain resistance. If we look over here, really, really good. And I don't want to look into the stats too much. That'll be for the actual reviews. But yeah, it's quite fast. It kind of feels like a medium. The gun feels like kind of verging on a tank destroyer gun. Although at Tier 9 you get big guns for tank destroyers, but still, it feels quite good. Similar to maybe the SU-122-54's gun in terms of damage and DPM and all that stuff. And the armor on this thing, it's decent. It's not really that good. I'm starting to think that maybe it's better to angle it. It's a pike nose, so of course you want to keep it, well, you should want to keep it straight. But I find the armor on this really doesn't hold up. Everyone always says you must hide that lower plate, but I'm starting to find out that you must hide some of this area. If by any chance at all the enemy is shooting down on you, this sloping here really does go away. I mean, right now you're looking at 250 or something, depending on where you shoot, 220 even millimeters, and that holds up quite well. But you just go a little bit more, and then it dips to 180. So the armor can be quite bad. The turret though is really good. So if you want a fast, good gun, beefy gun, then you want this thing. And then you go to the Tier 10, and this is where it kind of gets disappointing. The gun is worse than on the previous tank. It is a Tier 10 gun, but it is only a 122. So you're looking at worse alpha. I suppose it's got better DPM. I'm not even sure, to be honest. Let's go back to the 111, 124. Yeah, it's got better DPM, but not by much. Only 300 more about that. But for a gun that does less damage, I mean, everyone always says DPM is the equal thing. Doesn't matter about damage because damage is made up by reload. But if you had to pick between two guns that have the same DPM and one has higher alpha, the other one's just faster reload, I would take the higher alpha just because you're probably not going to be sitting there the whole time. Anyway, so in my mind, this gun is worse, and the armor on this really isn't that good. I mean, you can angle it and maybe it'll work, but in a lot of ways, it does just really let you down. The side armor is really good, so you can almost angle this on a 45-degree angle. Actually, you probably can. See if you can get that turret around. Say, for example, you're side scraping. If you took the shot from here, you're exposing quite a weak spot there. But you'd be able to get this out. Maybe you can make this work, something like that. Yeah, this would be quite strong. So this tank is actually pretty good for side scraping. Its side armor is like 90 millimeters, but besides that, it's really not that good. It's got a good turret, kind of looks like the IS-7 turret, but that's pretty much it. It is actually a letdown at Tier 10, but maybe this is the only tank I haven't played. Maybe it'll work for me when I get this. I'm almost there to it. So after you've gone down that heavy line, what would I suggest? Well, I would kind of search the medium tanks just because you can kind of fill the stuff in. And you've already got the Tech 58, so why not? This thing here, T-34-1, is a very, very good medium. In my opinion, it is the best Tier 7 medium tank. Its gun's really good. You're looking at like 240 for the average pen on Tier 7 medium tank's gun. This has got 275. Sorry, 175. And I meant 140 for the medium tanks. But 175 pen is going to go through pretty much everything at Tier 7. So it gets it done. The accuracy and aim time is not that good. We'll go into more depth with that later. But, I mean, this gun, it really does work at Tier 7. And the turret armor is, quite honestly, it's amazing. For Tier 7. If you get in Tier 7 max game, no one's going to ever penetrate your turret. So you can face hug people. I love face hugging KV, well, I guess they're KV-85s now. Because unless they're sniping here, which back then when they had the 122 with a good gun on it, they didn't have the accuracy to snipe my hatches. And they would kind of just dirt me in the front because most KV-1S back then drivers were kind of new at the game. They kind of dirt me in the turret, thinking they'll go through, but they can't. And then it just kind of works. The whole armor is quite good, so this thing is quite unique, quite good for your tier 7 medium. I suggest getting it. It doesn't really share the same equipment, but you can get through it. And then you get to the T-34-2. This thing, it's like a T-44, but worse. It's smaller, so I guess it's kind of faster. It's kind of like a scout tank. This is actually smaller than the scout tanks. But the gun's better as well. The reload's not that much better, but really this tank is very similar to the T-44, just it doesn't have the horsepower a ton. It's got no armor at all. The guns, you've got a lot of selection of the gun. You can either have the top 100mm, which does have 181 pen, which is better than T-44, but it's still really bad for tier 8. Or you can have the 122mm that's got 175 pen. DPM dies on that thing, and the accuracy is atrocious. So this tank is generally underpowered, but I would suggest stopping here, fully upgrading it, because you can use the engine on the WZ-120. So, this whole going to the heavies and then the mediums is all just to make this 120 grind easier. I grinded at 400,000 experience, or maybe 300,000 on the 120, and it was just painful because I went up the scout line. Anyway, so after you completed all this stuff, I would suggest not going to get the 120 from the T-34-2. I would say just fully upgrade it and stop there. Sell the tank or do whatever you want. And then move on to the 5916. This is a very interesting tank, to say the least, just because it's a scout tank, and it's got an autoloader. However, the autoloader, it's not really what you think it is. You would expect that an autoloader would have maybe, I don't know, 6, 7 shells in the clip, maybe 110, 120 millimeters of penetration, I don't know, 85 damage, let's just throw that around. And then maybe if you're lucky, you'll be able to get, I don't know, 25-second reload out of that, maybe? I don't know. I'm not too good with the autoloaders, but that would probably sound decent, like maybe the AMX-12T's gun or something like that. But that's not what you get with this tank. So before we look at the gun, this tank is very lightly armored. It's quite light, so it's quite zippy. But let's look at the gun, and you actually get a tank with 115 penetration, 115 damage, so it's kind of good. Penetration is only 85, so this thing can't do anything for penetration. It's really bad. And then your reload time is actually 9.5 seconds for a whole clip of 5. So really, that's really good. Just imagine that, 9.5 seconds to reload 5 shells. That's almost a shell every just under 2 seconds. That's almost unheard of in autoloaders, like to be able to reload in under 10 seconds. So you can really make this thing work. Just it's the penetration that really does kill you. But the DPM 2300 is really good for a light tank. It can really work. It's a really good scout killer, or anything that's lightly armored. It kills it very well. And it's a decent scout. It's got good camo ratings. It can work. It's not the fastest, but I mean it'll work. So 5916 is decent as long as you get around that pen. If you're stuck at the pen, then you're gonna have a horrible time. So then let's go check the next scout. This is the WZ-131, and this thing is breath of fresh air from the 5916, because this thing's actually got a pretty good gun. The top 100mm, you can actually choose if you want the 100mm or the 85. The 85 has a much more DPM and more accurate, but the 100mm does more damage and it's got much more pen. Personally, I go with 100mm because you don't need to sit there and flank shots. It's not like a medium tank. This is a scout tank, so you kind of want to snipe, get those beefy shots off, and then run away. So that's why that 100mm is quite better. Once again, no armor, but it's quite fast. Let's look at the DPM. 1600 is pretty bad. If you were to go for the 85mm, you're looking at 2200. That's actually really good. But you're stuck with well, you decided you want the pen, so you lose 500 DPM. That's actually, I might go to the 85 on this now that I think about it. But the penetration is a huge difference. You don't get 181. This is like tier 8. This is as good as the tier 8. Well, this is the same gun from the 234-2. And I've been using that at tier 8, so it's decent. As a scout tank, it's kind of average for scouting, but it's quite fast, good resistance, good specific power. These Chinese scout tanks kind of zip around really fast. And then let's go to my favorite tank of all time, the WZ-132. Looks really nice, gotta admit. Um, and for most of the thing, you will be using whatever gun you've been using the whole time on the other tank. Either you want that 85mm or the 100mm. Now, I believe you're stuck with this stock 85 or this 100mm here. You might need the turret, I'm not sure. I can't open up my World of Tanks actually, but you'll be stuck with one of those two guns, and you gotta decide if you want to go for the top 85 or the top 100. If you're really an 85 player, then you're gonna want that top 85. Let's just check the DPM from it. DPM, it's not much better than the other 85, really, but it's got much more pen. It's kind of like at the last tank. You want the 85, but you can't live with the pen. Well, this pen makes up for it and makes you kind of like, oh, that's good. But do remember you're facing tier 9s and 10s no matter what. So it's not like you could get into a tier 9 match or tier 8 match even with the last scout tank. It's always going to be 9s and 10s. But this thing, really fast. Specific power is not that good. The other tanks have better. And the top speed is not as good as the new light tanks. But the terrain resistance is ridiculously low. I mean, this is some of the best terrain resistance you'll ever see. It really is amazing. It's so much better than the other light tanks. And scoutability, when you fire, it's not that good. Actually, it's really bad when you fire. But while stationary, it's decent. While moving, it's quite good. So in my mind, it's one of the better scout tanks. If you put a full camo crew on it, it'll be amazing. Wargaming might even buff the scoutability of this tank. So it's really good. And then let's look at the top 100mm. This is the gun you need to get no matter what. You may not want to play it, but you need to get it. The DPM doesn't drop off that much, 1800s. Yeah, it's decent. Penetration is quite good, but the damage, 250 now, it's quite good now. You kind of lose out on your scoutability and stuff like that, and your specific power. Does that actually take that big of a hit? Wow. Oh, never mind, it doesn't. Anyway, yeah, that 100mm, it really does just make the tank. It penetrates so many things. You don't really need to worry about bouncing shots, because if you get far enough, you can just fire into the flanks and you can always go through. So this is, in my mind, this is a really good tank. It suffers its drawbacks, but as long as you scout, it's good. And the armor on this thing really isn't that bad, for a scout tank at least. It's all red there, but it's not good. But you're looking at about 80mm from the front. If you angle it nicely, you can get some weird bounces. The turret's pretty bad unless you miss your shot, then you can bounce. But there has been a game that I've had. Someone did shoot me with an I-7, and I was on like half health. They shot me like right in the middle of the tank, and they bounced off the frontal hull, and I just laughed and went around and killed them. But yeah, this tank can bounce, and the good thing about it, it's got the HP, just like all tier 8 scouts, to take a shot or two. So, scout tanks, I think this is a really good scout tank. Maybe not as good as the T-54 lightweight, but I love it to death. It's my favorite tank in the game. So, the tank that most people have been waiting for, the WZ-120, and this is actually the Type 59, if you guys don't know. See here, initially the WZ-120 brackets Type 59. So all of you who whine, I want the Type 59, well, this is the Type 59. So just go get this tank. Well, what's special about it? It's a medium tank, and now it has armor. But before we look at the armor, we'll look at some of the equipment. So this radio you'll have already gotten from your scout tank. So if you went down the scout tank like I told you to, you've already got the radio. Tracks you will need to buy, and you will need to get them before you mount other things because it is too heavy. It kind of sucks. The engine, you will have the second engine from the T-34-2, which means all you need to do is grind that top one. And this one doesn't have really much of a difference, so this is like one of the last things. It is the last thing you get. It really doesn't make that much of a difference, but it is quite expensive. The turret you will need to get, but besides that, you've already got all these guns, and the reason for that is the first 100mm you get on your T-34-2. The second 100mm is the one you get on the WZ-132, and the final 100mm is the gun you get on the 110 or the you'll unlock it on the 110. So that's, I mean, you've already got all these tanks, sorry, all these guns. And if you noticed, this 122mm, this is the gun on the 113. So if you've actually got the 113, you have quite literally all the guns. Personally, I started out with the second 100mm. It's a decent gun, but it's still the WZ-132's gun. So it kind of does struggle, and I completely went all out to grind the T-34-2 just to get the engine, because this 60 horsepower can make quite a difference, and you still need to get all that stuff. So yeah, my grind was still pretty bad. Each of these guns here are 60k for the gun, so it's kind of depressing. So you're looking at 120k if you don't have. Sorry about this, actually. Hopefully, I don't have problems with it. But if you don't have the WZ-132, for example, maybe you just went down that medium line, and that medium line is kind of like the worst way to go, just because it's got the least amount of things. Sorry about this, my props is acting up, but it's really got the least amount of things. So if you go down that line, you're going to be in a lot of pain. But you'll be looking at 120k. This is a 45, so 165k. I can't remember how much these equipment are, but you're looking at about 200k just to upgrade this tank, and then another 200 to get to the next tank. So that's 400k if you're starting from scratch. So this tank can be the death of you, to be honest. It's 2 tier 10 tanks you need to grind out if you start with the wrong way. However, if you start the right way, you're looking at maybe 220k, and that 200 of that is getting the 121. So it can be really easy or really painful depending on how you do it. So go down the heavy line, then the medium, and then this thing. Trust me. And the final tank, the 121, this is my favorite medium tank, actually. I didn't finish reviewing the armor. Sorry, I completely missed a lot of tanks with this tank. So back to the 120. The armor on it is quite good. If you look at the turret, it's not in HD, so you will not have that T54 kind of turret. It's kind of lost onto here. This armor plate can be really thick, 320 sometimes. It's a 220 flat, but you're looking at probably 230, closer to hit to the cheeks. So if you're going to fight one of these things, hit the cheeks right here. Don't hit anywhere else, unless you can hit a hatch. Hats are kind of big, but they're quite well armored. If you are a low tier tank, what do I suggest? Well, I suggest you don't fire at the cupolas, because these are actually really well armored. I never realized how well armored they are. At tier 9 and 10, it's not well armored at all, but depending on where you hit it, it could be really, really bad. You need to hit them straight on. So if you've got like 220 pen, you should be fine going through the cupolas, but if you do miss it, could be bad. Try to hit just right here, flat on the cheek. Just right around here. That used to be a weak spot, but then they did fix it. Lucky for me. But yeah, it's pretty good. The hull armor, it is pretty bad though. It does slope up, if you notice here. It's kind of hard to tell, but it does curve if you look at that really closely. So you're looking at 160 with that millimeters of armor. If you hit their lower plate, the lower plate's not actually a weakness. So don't shoot the lower plate of a 120 unless he is cresting a ridge. Because this thing has such bad gun depression, when you go over that ridge, you might see like even more than what you're seeing here. You might quite literally see like the whole bottom of the tank. Hit that, of course, but this thing generally, both plates are equal. So if you can, try to hit this lower section of the upper plate, because if you're at any kind of angle, that lower plate is hard. So lower section of the upper plate, that's where you want to hit it from the front. This thing has a huge side, so you can hit it from its side here. Generally, it can be pretty weak if you know what you're doing. But the armor, if you don't really know what you're doing, it can bounce a lot. It's really troll. The turret is super troll. It can bounce almost anything. But the hull, it really can bounce if you get a bad shot off on it. So if you're a driver, you know that you do get some lucky bounces. Gun depression for the 100mm, it's 5. For this 122, it is 3 degrees. That is the worst in the game. Actually, the LTTB now has the worst, but this thing is still horrible. DPM's 2200, 2300. I believe it's 2500 with the other 100mm. Yeah, 2400. So you don't lose much DPM. You get better penetration. The penetration on this gun is ridiculous, 250. You just shoot, like, if you look at this accuracy, 0.36 is horrible, 3.3 aim time, it's horrible. But you just shoot and you'll probably penetrate no matter what. The camo bonus for this thing is really good. This thing has really good camo, and it's very, very fast despite its bad specific power. So it can keep up with the T54. So in my mind, this is just I think it's a powered up T54, but people will disagree. They'll say the hull armor is better. Personally, I think the hull armor on this is just as good, and the turret is actually better. Although I'm not too sure. The T54's turret, when it went to HD, is pretty good. When this goes to HD, this will be by far the better turret. So I think this gun's better, this tank's better, but yeah, it's up to you guys. Finally, the 121. This is actually the Type 59. It says in the some technical innovations were applied later in the development of the Type 69 tank. They think this is like the alpha, like the precursor to the Type 69. This is actually the Type 69, so the designation should not be the 121. I don't know what it should be. Maybe a 120-1 or something. I don't know. But the 121 is an incorrect term. It should actually have same gun as the FB4202. It's a 105 gun that it has. Actually, it might have the Leopard's gun. I can't remember. But anyway, this thing has got really good turret armor. Like really, really good. It kind of fills up at the cheeks, but once again, when it goes to HD, it will be much better. But still, it's pretty much the 120's turret with bigger cupolas. But the cupolas are quite strong. You check over here. Yeah, they are really, really strong. You just need to know what you're going to hit. Basically, if you're fighting one of these, don't shoot the turret. Shoot this cupola over here, like the one, if it's facing you at the left side. You'll probably be able to pen, but you really probably can't. Your best luck if you're in a tier 10, shoot the hull. The hull is just so much weaker. If you angle it, the hull can be kind of good, but it can be kind of bad at the same time. It really depends. But the gun, same gun as the 122, has just better DPM. Much better, actually. It's like 2,800, I believe. Yep, 2,800. If you've got full crew, I've got Brothers in Arms in mine. I've got it over 3,000. It's really good. This gun is amazing. The accuracy and aim time is pretty bad. As long as you got equipment for that, it can be really, really good. And this thing, it's not that slow. It's kind of slow, but it's actually quite slower than the Russian mediums. But it kind of makes up for it with the armor. Gun depression, once again, -3. It's horrible. I just need to work around that. And besides that, this tank is really good. I think it's better than the Russian tank just because of that gun. But it's not versatile. So, for example, Clan Wars, this tank is not a viable option. But for solo pubbing, I think this is a great tank. And let's just look at the premiums for a second. This will be quite fast. So you got one premium, the Type 68. By the way, I have all these tanks except for the T-34-2. Sorry, the -3. I do actually have the Type 59, but not on my North American account. And I also don't have the WZ-111, but I will maybe get that. This tank basically is an M42 Duckster with a Hellcat turret, pretty much. There's nothing special about it. It's basically a Hellcat that is a scout with the stock gun. The gun on it, though, is very good. It's got really good DPM. 2,100 is great for tier 6. It says it's below average, but I really like it. Against what? 1 second. PM against tier 10 medium tanks. That's not good. So it's kind of glitching out. I'm not sure actually if this is the right stat. It might be above average. It probably is, to be honest. Now it's giving me the tier 6 light tank. Anyway, it's still, yeah, it's really good DPM. The penetration is quite good. It's really fast. I like it personally. I think it's a great scout tank. The next premium tank you get is Type 62, and this is the Type 64 kind of replaces this thing. And this is basically a WZ-130. It's a 132. That's it's what the 132 actually became. It got transformed into this. 132 was a prototype for this. However, in the game, it thinks that the Type 62 is a prototype for the 131. So once again, this is kind of incorrect. It should have better stats than this, but however, it doesn't. Anyway, it's a pretty good scout tank. The gun is decent. 145 pen is not good. But I mean, you can make it work, but you'll never see one of these. These are very rare. So these are just rare premium tanks. They're usually for awards. I don't know why this was taken out of the game. It's not overpowered or anything. It's just special. Then you got the 112 heavy tank. The 112 heavy tank is basically kind of like an IS-6, but frontally. If that makes any sense. Same gun as the IS-6, except it does fire heat, which is very sad. Almost all the Chinese tanks, by the way, fire heat. I can't think of any except for that 100mm that I said the 110 and the 111 get. Those fire APCR, but that's it. Everything else fires heat. Chinese heat, really bad. Don't fire it. Basically, you'll be relying on the AP of this gun, which is 175 pen. It kind of struggles, but it's the same as IS-6. The armor is actually really good. I bounce 50% of my shells, I believe, on my account, and I'm not that good of a player, so it kind of just bounces. The turret is, you're not going to penetrate the turret. Don't even try. I mean, at tier 8 premium, no. Yeah, you don't even bother. You might be able to hit a cupola, but if you're lucky, you'll hit the cupola if it's up close. And this tank likes to brawl up close, so I mean, you can do it, but you're just not going to pen the front of a turret, so don't even bother. Even the front of the hull, tier 8 premium tank. I mean, you'll be facing tier 9s only. A tier 9 probably can't penetrate. This thing here is very evil. It's an observation deck. Everyone sees it. It's like, oh, weak spot. They shoot it. It's actually 330. Because for reasons that I don't know, it's really good. So nothing ever happens. It's really good except for the lower plate. Lower plate definitely a weakness, so you shoot that. Simple. This thing is faster than the IS-6. It kind of does feel like a medium tank. Let's just look at the stats. Gun depression definitely is worse. And the side armor, by the way, is worse than the IS-6. All the Chinese heavy tanks' side armor are incorrectly modeled. And they don't give them spaced armor. So, whereas the IS-3, the IS-6, all that stuff will eat up heat shells or anything, these will not. So you can go right to the, I don't know if Wargaming will ever fix it, but these are horrendously incorrectly modeled. Anyway, DPM is above average for a heavy tank at tier 8, so it's just kind of good, because it's a premium tank. Mobility, as you can see, quite good, terrain resistance, and really good camo for some reason. I don't know why. So this tank is actually really good. It's probably the best tier 8 premium. I have it. I don't want to be biased, but it kind of is. I know a lot of good people that think it is one of the better ones. Anyway, so you get the T-34-3 here. Kind of like the T-34-2, except all you've done is dedicate yourself to the 122. So I might like it. I usually run the T-34-2 with the 122, so this might be good for me. But it is essentially the 112's gun just on a Type 59. That's essentially what it is. Doesn't really have the hull armor of the Type 59, but hull armor still is quite decent for a medium tank. The turret is quite good. Not the best, but still quite good for a tier 8 medium premium tank. So, I mean, you can make it work. It's kind of slow, bad specific power for a medium, but good terrain resistance. Gun depression is 3 degrees, so it's really, really, really bad. But besides that, I mean, it's decent. It's a decent tank. A lot of my friends think it's underpowered. It kind of verges on underpowered, but it gets preferential matchmaking. Can't really complain. I might get it. Now to the Type 59, the thing that all of you are probably wanting. This thing isn't really that good. It's just basically the T-34-2, 3, or the WZ-120 with a 100mm. As you can see, this is the same 100mm that you do get on the T-34-2, so nothing special about that. It does kind of have the armor, though. The whole turret armor is, yeah, it's decent. 210. It's kind of good for tier 8 premium. Hull armor is decent, at the same time not that good. But it can bounce the shots. It's really fast though. And what makes this tank so special? Is this an HD? No, it's not really an HD. Anyway, if you check, GPM is not that good. People do really well on them though. It's got pretty bad accuracy. Actually, it's got really bad accuracy. 0.38 is really bad. Well, 0.37, I guess. Aim time 2.8 is horrible. Depression -7, so that's uncharacteristically good for a Chinese tank. Mobility, though, specific power is bad, but it's got good ground resistance. Scout ability is quite good. But what makes this thing so good, for some reason, is, and it's not even going to show here, probably, aim circle spread. Well, it's probably not going to say. Firing on the move, though. Can I find that here? I don't know where to find that. But firing on the move for some reason really does work. I played on the Chinese account. I'm not sure if it's unnerved on there. But for some reason you just shoot and it's just a laser beam. It just always hits. I don't know why, but it works. And that's what makes this tank so special. You just keep moving on the move, you shoot. Someone might fire back to you, but because you're on the move, they're probably going to bounce because they're going to hit a weird angle, and then you just kind of kill them. And that's why this thing is kind of overpowered. It's also only overpowered because of the platoons. When you have medium tanks like this in a platoon, you just can't stop them. That's why I'm thinking of getting a T-44 platoon. Those could be really, really strong. But realistically, this tank overall, it's not overpowered at all. It's actually kind of underpowered. The gun's not that good. It's not that fast. The armor is quite lacking. It's just kind of sad. So there's nothing too special about it. If you see it, you just try to get around it and shoot it aside. Don't let it snipe you on the move. And finally, the last tank, which is the one that you guys probably don't even know about, and that's the WZ-111. Essentially what it is a same tank for tier 9, just with the tier 8 112's turret and gun. As you can see, it is the 112's gun. Same stats for everything, except it's got the 111's hull. Yeah, there's nothing too special about that. It's got really good hull armor, but as a pike nose, you don't angle it. And that's pretty much it. Statistically, you're not going to see it, so it doesn't even matter. It's got good DPM, quite fast. It's decent. I've never played this tank. I've never even seen one of these tanks, but they are kind of unique and kind of special, so you guys might want to see it. So anyway, I hope you guys like that kind of rundown of the Chinese tank line. It's kind of long, but that's kind of what you're getting into. If you want to see individual tank reviews, you can check them out right now. I'll slowly go by, but I'll do a review on like probably each one of these tanks. So if you guys like any of them, well, just click on one. Maybe you'll want the tank. These tanks are really good. I think this is one of the better lines in World of Tanks, just because you don't get really bad tanks. The only ones I can think of that are really bad is the T-34-2, the 113. Even then, the 113 I've never played, so can't really say anything. But there's no tank that's actually really bad. Whereas I could probably find plenty in any other line. So this line I definitely recommend going down. Great standouts with the WZ-120, WZ-132, T-34-1, 110, WZ-111. That's really the only standouts I'd say, although personally I would say Type T-34, Type 58, 121. I think these are really good, but I mean, those are just personally, they work for me, and they don't work for a lot of people. And the premium tanks, all the premium tanks except for the T-34-3 are amazing, but you're not going to get some of those. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys later.